One of the most common things I hear from e-commerce brands is the fact that their shopping ads or any campaign in Google Ads is getting clicks, but it's not getting any conversions. And so nobody actually understands how to properly diagnose and target what the issue is. So today I wanted to go through three things that I'm finding are honestly the most common. They're really the 80% of issues that come up with shopping ads, the reason why you don't get conversions. So let's dive right in. So the first thing that you want to make sure is with shopping ads, with Performance Max campaigns, you don't have keywords. You have search themes, you have audience signals, which act as supporting levers. With standard shopping, you just have audiences. But the main thing that is going to dictate if you're getting in front of the right people is going to be your product listing, which I'll explain. But right now, I want to focus on search terms. And if you didn't know, you can actually, for Performance Max campaigns, you can look at your search terms. If you open this box right here, click on search terms, you will actually view it from this specific campaign. Okay, so what you want to make sure, especially again because there's no keyword targeting, you need to be doing a ridiculous amount of cleaning up. I'm talking adding hundreds, maybe even thousands of negative keywords, especially if you're a newer account. But even if you're a mature advertiser and you launched a new Performance Max campaign, or you migrated from standard shopping to Performance Max and you're not seeing good results, I can say that with pretty high certainty it's probably because you're not targeting the right searchers. So what we want to go and do is you would want to click search terms here, and then you want to filter by clicks and you want to filter by impressions, and you want to see basically what you're paying or getting the most traffic for, because if you're getting x amount of clicks for a certain search term, it's getting the most visitors. And then also by impressions, because the impressions are going to tell you what are you showing up for the most, not necessarily just people visiting your site. So we popped into a campaign here. This is the main campaign where we're spending about $200 per day, focused on new customer acquisition. So, and you can see this is specifically from the Performance Max campaign. So what we did here is exactly what I said. We filter by clicks, and then we also can filter by impressions afterwards. But we want to see, okay, what is getting us the most traffic? Is this actually a relevant term that we want to be targeting? And really, you want to add them as negative keywords. So the important thing to keep in mind is how you probably add negative keywords, because it's not about just clicking this box and then adding it on exact match. The best practice is you go to tools, you go to shared library, and then there's exclusion lists right here. And you want to create an exclusion list specifically for negative keywords that are competitor terms, are terms that are not relevant, that you don't want to target. Maybe you do want competitors, but think of like products that you don't offer, or people looking for another business that it just means right now they're not going to buy from you. Especially for this campaign, again, it depends on your goals, but I'm saying holistically. And you want to add those on broad match. So example, if my brand name is Daniel and somebody else's is Michael, I don't want to show up for Michael. So I wouldn't add Michael on exact match. I would add it on broad match, because anytime somebody searches with Michael in the search term, I don't want to show up because it's not my product and not something I offer. So what you should keep in mind is negative keywords for broad match specifically, they don't function the same way as broad match keywords do, where broad match keywords actually also target the meaning behind the meaning of the actual keyword you inputted, but also the intent, and it can do a good job of understanding what part of the funnel that person's along. So it doesn't work that way at all for negative keywords. Like if you exclude, I don't know, mouse, it's not going to make you ineligible to show up for keyboard as well. So something to keep in mind on that front. And at the same time, again, if you're doing exact match, it's going to exclude exactly what you're excluding on exact match. It's just making your job harder, because that variation where it's just Michael, when they search Michael and XYZ, you only excluded Michael on exact match, for example. So Michael XYZ will still show up, and then you have to do it again and again and again. So it just becomes super repetitive, and you want to be, again, strategic with how you add these, right? Like you don't want to go back and have to add the same type of terms, and you're also wasting money because people are clicking. So best practice, filter by clicks, filter by impressions, look at the top 100 terms. Bonus, if you can do 500, that's good. It's just a little bit more time consuming, but I would definitely be doing this on a consistent basis, at least once a week. Again, the more mature your account is, the cleaner that I would assume the traffic is, because Google does a better job of understanding who to match to. And at the same time, the hope is you've added enough negative keywords in your time, but definitely on a weekly basis. And if you're a newer account, you want to be doing this pretty much daily until you're clean, right? Because you want to get out of the rut of spending on terms that are not relevant. So that's really the idea there. Something to keep in mind. If your issue wasn't with search terms then, so let's move on to phase two. It's the products that you're actually targeting. when you're really setting up your targeting within Performance Max, again, the goal and typically what happens if you've added assets as well, 80% of the 80% of the spend goes to the shopping network. And I typically just run feed only Performance Max and maybe segment out if I'm running assets as well. Why? Because typically shopping is going to be most lucrative. Again, there's different cases, depends on the brand. But again, in this specific example where we're talking about shopping, what I want you to keep in mind is refrain from just targeting all products. So like we literally just have no categorization. There's no custom labels. You're literally just targeting all products, because what's happening is just mumbo jumbo. Everything's pushed into one, where you could be targeting accessories. You could be targeting products that are $10. You could be targeting products that are $1,000, and it's all meshed into one. And it doesn't give Google a clear signal of what you're targeting. And more importantly, it's really difficult to look at performance, because in the case where we're doing it, where we have 4 different custom labels across different types of collections, we can very clearly see what's pulling its weight and what's not. Again, something to keep in mind, we're not going after ROAS here. We're going for cheaper cost per conversion because it's a sample sale. So, and again, that goes to show just every account has different KPIs. But again, if you were wondering, so what we have here, again, we have different custom labels for each product category. And that allows me to know, hey, when I'm looking at this campaign and optimizing, what is actually pulling its weight, what is not, what do I need to cut out? And so that could be the case for you as well. So if you actually want to look on a product level, there's a button right here. I just can't see because of my head, but you can open and then hit, I think it's products right here. I just can't see it, but hit products. You can do the same exercise that we did, filter by clicks, impressions, look at conversions, look at what is spending the most, and then see is that, hey, is that a product that I really want to push? Is it performing well organically or through other sources? And just kill it. And maybe you just want to focus on a select few SKUs that are best sellers, or if you're a higher SKU, select product categories that are best sellers. To keep in mind in terms of your targeting and the actual search terms that you get, if you know what search terms you actually want to target and what your ideal customer would be looking for, make sure that's actually in your product titles, because actually if you're front loading keywords in your product titles, especially for new customer campaigns where you're trying to go after new customers, that's going to allow Google to more easily match the right type of searcher to your actual product. And you have 150 characters to play with, so make sure your title doesn't get truncated, but be smart with what you include. So you can do that in Merchant Center manually, or you can use a different tool like Data Feedwatch or Symprosis. Both work just to add certain attributes at the start of your title. And if you're also adding product identifiers and then also Google product types, that's going to allow Google to more relevantly match a search again to what you offer. Bouncing off of that point of product attributes and actually just giving it the relevant data so it knows who to target, I wanted to actually show a live example, and I recommend you do this. Again, talking about the keywords that you want to target or the searches that you want to target. Do a test search in your target market, wherever you're showing ads for. In this case, I'm just doing Canada, but you can do US, UK, Australia, whatever country you're in. So you want to look at the competitive landscape. Right? What you want to always think about with shopping ads is how you can be polarizing, because Google rewards advertisers that are polarizing for the reason that CTR is higher. And again, if your CTR is higher, then it means Google is making more money off of you. It's likely a relevant listing. So it's going to continue pushing that and rewarding you for that with a lower CPC as well and better ranking. So something to keep in mind on that front. But if we look at the different listings, number one, you want to see, do I actually show up? Which carousel am I in? Am I later in the results? Am I earlier? And then look at what the competitors are actually doing. So one of the first things that I see is the fact that we actually are displaying a US price to a Canadian customer, right? And again, especially if you're a store that's targeting multiple countries, like if you're targeting Canada, US, and US is pulling its weight, Canada isn't, you got to make sure that you have a separate feed for Canada, because the price needs to be different. And also on the landing page on the actual website, those product pages need to have a Canadian specific price as a consumer from Canada, right? Think about it for yourself. Like if you're shopping for something and you see something in a different currency, it does turn you off a little bit, right? Because you don't know the exact price. You got to mentally convert or wait until checkout. So that's just making it as low friction as possible. So because again, it's pulled from one feed, ad serving in Canada, it's auto converting, but it's showing the US price as well to me, which is not relevant at all. So if you have a separate feed, easily that's going to fix it. Number two, is look at the product images, right? Because the first thing that's going to pop to you is the product images. You can see a lot of people have like the switches with their keyboard, everything's with a white background. This is where a lifestyle image I'm 100% sure would take off. For example, if you have somebody typing on a desk, just from like a kind of side angle, like a 45 degree, 90 degree, yeah, 45, 90 degree angle from the side, or even more of a bird's eye view of them typing, that would kill it, because again, it's a pattern disruption. Everything you see here is a white background, right? Like literally every single listing, like except this kind of listing here, which is gray, but that's something to keep in mind for sure. The other thing as well, do you have product reviews? If you have over 50 reviews for a product or product category, you can actually get product reviews to show up in your shopping ads, right? Again, that just adds, instead of seeing like a US price here, I would want to see the reviews. I would also want to see that it's free shipping. I would want to see that this ships in 1 week, 14 days, 30-day returns. That's everything that you set up in Merchant Center. You can't really control exactly what it shows, but the idea is you give it as much information as possible, relevant information, so that it can pull the correct kind of field here instead of doing like a US price. Like I like the fact that we're showing, a ships free here, right? Especially for a product that, you're paying over $100, you don't really want to pay $10, $15 for shipping. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And then also, if you have promotions active on your website, literally just take a look at your website or look in your Shopify if you have promotions active. Make sure that's added. There's so many different options in Merchant Center. You can add like a free gift over X amount of purchase. You can add like a $20 coupon. You can add a 10% off. There's so many different options you can do. And the key is, like, you want to make your listing as appealing and as polarizing as possible. If you just add those 5 different things that I mentioned, that alone is just going to make your ad listing a lot higher quality and look a lot stronger. And again, increase the amount of quality traffic you're going to be getting. Google's going to reward you with better ranking. And then also the fact that, like, you're just going to match to better searches, right? Because if you take that point I said about making sure your titles are keyword loaded, where, we actually have mechanical keyboard at the start of the title, all of a sudden for mechanical keyboard with an appealing listing, you're going to show up closer to this, to the start of the carousel. And the idea is you're going to get more sales. And the one thing I want to leave you off with is the fact that we actually didn't talk about bids or bidding strategy. I didn't tell you to increase your bids. I didn't tell you to change your bidding strategy, because it all comes down to the foundation of your feed, right? Because if you're showing an appealing listing that people like, and you're showing up for the right types of searchers, and you're also making it very easy for Google to understand what different product categories you're targeting, and it's easy for you to actually optimize for performance because you see which categories or specific SKUs are performing rather than just targeting all products, I can guarantee you that's going to improve your results. Obviously, caveats the fact that you don't have a well-optimized landing page or website, which is another video I can make, but this is strictly from an advertising perspective, what needs to be done, the main pointers that I have towards actually seeing success with shopping ads. So those are typically the 3 things that I see that are hindering performance and the reason why you're just getting clicks in shopping ads. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I can make follow-up videos or on anything else that you're really curious about when it comes to Google Ads. But if not, I'll see you in the next one.